AA Best Bail Bonds big game coverage live from Miami.
It is the Blitz here on 1250 ESPN San Antonio, 94.5 FM. Stuck at work, so are we, but ours is better as we're sitting on Radio Row. It's your AA Best Bail Bonds Radio Row coverage coming to you from Miami Beach, and I'm sitting right next to, if you're on Facebook Live, you can see him. Stink. Mark Schlereth joining us here on the Blitz, man. How's your day going?
My day is great, man. How are you?
I've had about 6 cups of Cuban coffee, man. I'm going to fly out of here.
Right. No, that stuff is great,
Woo,
right?
it's
What do they put in that thing?
I don't know.
I'm afraid to ask.
Yeah.
And they give it to you in these little thimble things, and I think that's just enough.
I know if
I had a couple of them this morning. They were awesome.
Dude, I'm like Kareem Hunt. Don't drug test me, man. I might fail.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm a little cracked today. Hey, Mark, I'm glad to see you, man. That's one of the regular things we get to do, hang out with you on the Super Bowl. So how's your life, man?
My life is great, man. Things are good. It's it's been a great transition moving over to Fox and calling games. And, I tell you, studio work is great, and I love being in studio, but the games, being able to be at the games, being able to be at practice, connecting with coaches. One of the things I think you lose when you go into studio or you go into radio, right? Everything is easy. You know what I mean? Right?
Don't tell anybody that.
No, not your job isn't easy. I mean, everything when you're watching it, it's easy. Why didn't that guy just do that? Why didn't he just do that, right? Like, you become it's so easy to be critical, and it's so easy to lose empathy. And the game is tough. It is flat out a bitch. Whoa. And so, like, being back at practice and talking to guys and, reconnecting with coaches and doing that at the games, you really kind of grow back into that empathetic part of understanding how hard this game is, how much these guys care, the sacrifices that they make to play this great game. And that part for me has been awesome to re-experience that, and it's as close as you can come to playing without beating the snot out of you.
Without waking up Monday sore.
Well, and as a play-by-play guy, I feel that as well. And, you think in the studio, you have time to think about what you're going to say. You look at the tapes that you're going to analyze. You got producers that are helping you. When you're in that booth and you're watching it live, it's unscripted, it's reactionary. And it's all right there in front of you. I mean, you feel a part of it, which is, again, being a guy that's in the booth a lot. When I hear people critical of those calling games, it's like, dude, you think you can do that? That's one of the hardest things to do in broadcasting.
You know what's crazy for me? One of the things that has been crazy is changing the focus. Right, having a more global perspective on the game. Mm-hmm. So as a player, you watch the game through a straw hole.
You're watching your position.
Right, you just line. Right where like what you played, right? And then to have this global perspective of, what was the route? What was the route combination? What was quarterback's drop? What was the protection? What was what defense were they in? Was it single high? So you start breaking it down as they break the huddle. You're in 3 wides, you're in 4 wide, you're in 2 tights. What are you in? What's the personnel groupings? Safety rotation. How's the safety rotation? Single high, double high. And then you start watching. Like, one of the first things I'll look at is, as soon as the ball is about to be snapped, I'll look at the tackle. Because the tackle will tell you run or pass right off the bat. Mm-hmm. You just watch him.
Is it foot placement? Is it back? Is he high on his –
Right. All that stuff. Is he coming off the ball? Bam, run. Now I go to the back, and now I go to the – and so there's no right way to do it because I'm never looking at the same thing twice.
Yep.
And then it's a matter of, of being able to tell yourself, hey, one thing. You really got time to talk about one thing. So find the one thing that really, puts your panties in a wad and talk about it, right? And so it's a fascinating process. I've spent so much time. Mike Shanahan has really mentored me in the standpoint of I'm at his house watching film all the time, and to look at the game like a coach as opposed to looking at the game like a player. And it's been a fascinating process, man. I've absolutely loved it.
You sound like would coaching be something you'd consider?
Well, I don't want to take a pay cut, though.
True.
My family,
and too many more hours added to your workday.
My family has grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle that I don't know that they could handle me taking a pay cut. So, but you know what? Last year I consulted with the Saints. Mm-hmm. I've been asked by several different organizations to consult this year, which has been was one of the funnest things I've been able to do is walk into the Saints organization and have a litany of different things in the running game and pass protection that they want to go over. And, how do you run zone to if you're a guard, how do you run it to a 2 technique, a 3 technique, a 2-eye technique? How do you run it to a bubble? How do you, blah, 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 front side, back side, guard tackle combination, center guard combination, tackle tight end combination, and just detail. Then watch the film. What would you do differently? And one of the things I got them to do was to look at how they're running, all the plays that they run, and through persuasion and explanation and coaching and talking and watching film together, get them to change about 7 techniques that they were coaching. And
wow.
just so one of the things that's been lost in our league is the nuance of because we're not allowed to practice anymore, man. We're not, especially my position. Think about this. I always say, you want to piss me off? Let's talk about skill position players. Right? Because everybody, I can take a football and throw it to anybody in here. They can catch it and throw it back to me. If we did a one-on-one drill right here, I'd start whipping ass and taking names. Right? So you think about from a skill position. The most skilled position in all of football is the offensive line. Think about it this way. Every time you line up, you are outmatched athletically. There's never one time that we line up against you where I'm matched up against a like athlete. The athlete that I'm lined up against is 3, 4, 5 times better athlete than I am. Every time I line up. When you line up against a
You're not talking about yourself. You're talking about D-line and the way that has progressed to the offensive line? Or you
I'm saying
offensive
every time,
line in general.
Yeah. Offensive line, every time I line up against a defensive lineman, that guy is a better athlete than I am. So every other position, if I'm lining up at right receiver, that corner is a like athlete. Safety and tight end, they're like athletes. Linebackers, like athletes, right? This is the only place in football where you line up and the athlete across from you is 2 times better than you athletically. So now from a skill position, from a the greatest skill in football is moving a guy from point A to point B who's like size, like strength, and is a better athlete than you. So your technique better be impeccable, right? Because you're against a better athlete. That's why the skill involved in doing that is incredible, and that skill has been lost because we've taken practice out of practice. You can't do it, and you can't do it in a walkthrough. It doesn't work that way.
It's interesting because we were talking with Tyron Smith one year out at Cowboys training camp in Oxnard, and he was talking about all the hand techniques and always working on his footwork because he knew the guy coming at him was faster, so he had to figure out a way to beat him to the spot or push him away from. And you're right, I haven't thought about it in the sense of if you're not practicing that at live speed, how do you get better at it?
Yeah, and so one of the big things that we talk about is the nuance of actually blocking people, and
it's hard to put to terms nuance and blocking.
Right? Yeah. There's a juxtaposition there, right? But that's some of the stuff that. And one of the reasons that teams are calling me saying, "Hey, man, we'd like you to help us," and so that part has been really cool. So it does kind of scratch that itch to coach.
You talk about Shanahan and you watching tape with him, and you go into the Saints. Is that to the zone blocking, which is what you guys were known for,
right?
With Denver. I mean, so that expertise, has that been lost because the zone blocking schemes just have kind of gone by the wayside? And
everybody still runs zone. I mean, but there's a lot of teams that still base in it. There's probably more gap scheme and and power and counter scheme because a lot of the one back run stuff is based in that because of the shotgun runs and stuff. But there are still a lot of teams that want to base in some zone stuff. So and all the stuff, whether it's every team runs gap, every team runs powers, every team runs some counter, every team runs everything. It's just whether you base or whether that's your number one thing. It's like your major or your minor.
Three-time Super Bowl champion Mark Schlereth with us here on Super Bowl Radio Row in Miami. You've got 3 rings. You've got 2 teams that, Kansas City hadn't been here in 50 years. Not many on this San Francisco team has Super Bowl experience. I know you're a lineman. I've said all week, well, it's Tuesday here, but leading up to it, this game is going to be won in the trenches. I think San Francisco has better line play on both sides, but I'm still right now on Tuesday leaning Kansas City.
Right.
Who are you taking?
Well, I'm leaning San Francisco, and it's some intangible stuff. You mentioned lines of scrimmage. Defensive line is incredible. One of the things about Kansas City that makes them so unique, and I understand why everybody leans to them, because offensively, I mean, you come back from 24-0 and it's 28. In the second quarter it's 24-0, and at the end of the second quarter it's 28-24. It's incredible. 17-0 down to Tennessee. It's the dynamic nature of their offense, right? Mm-hmm. And when you watch them, their ability to get 5 guys out in the pattern 80% of the time, and if they don't block you up front, Patrick Mahomes makes a guy miss, extends the play, and second reaction-wise, off-platform throws. I used to say Aaron Rodgers is the best off-platform thrower I've ever seen. Patrick Mahomes might be better. I mean, it's just been incredible what he's able to do and the athleticism that offense that offense has. So it's hard. It's hard to imagine. The game plan is always, the recipe is hey, if a normal game has 11 to 12 possessions, if we can limit them to 8 possessions, we got a chance. Well, if you score on 6 to 8, what the hell does it matter, right?
Yeah, true.
And that's the Kansas City Chiefs. So it should be great. Their defensive line in San Francisco is amazing. The intangible stuff with the Niners is incredible. I like the Niners, and some of that is just my affection for the Shanahan family.
And that is very interesting as you spend time with Coach Shanahan, younger Shanahan, taking over the reins there in San Francisco and radically changing the environs there. It just feels like this is a different place than it was 4 or 5 years ago with Lynch showing up and the winning mindset. Tell us about Kyle.
Yeah.
Tell us, what kind of guy is he?
He's incredibly detailed. He's a great coach. He really gets complete and total buy-in. And it's because this is what I say. Do this for me. This is how you're going to get rewarded in return. And he'll put out there on a Friday, he'll say, hey, man, we're going to run this play 6 times, and this play sucks. We're going to get 2 yards of carry on this play. But we're going to get 4 explosives in the passing game. If you guys just believe it and you execute it, I guarantee it. And you know what happens? It happens, right? exactly the way he says it's going to happen. And so he gets total buy-in. I tell you, one of the great stories for me in the divisional game, Akella Witherspoon's the starting corner, gets beat a couple times in the opening drive, gives up a touchdown, gets benched, right? Now, most guys are going to pout on the sideline. What does he do? Goes to the special teams coach and goes, hey, man, I just got benched. Give me E-Man's, which is Emmanuel Mosley. Give me E-Man's reps in special teams because he's going to play for me now, and let me take his reps to take some of that pressure off of him. That's the kind of stuff that wins championships.
Yes.
That's championship football, and they have it. To me, they just have it in droves over there.
Mark Schlereth joining us here on ESPN San Antonio. The part of the game is injuries, and as you try to get away from football, so many things have changed since you left. And one of the things that I personally use an awful lot as a coach in basketball, KT tape. KT tape is a miracle worker for a lot of different reasons. And I'll be honest with you, I've used yards of this stuff. I don't know how it works, but it works.
Well, I'll tell you how. Well, number one, it's like a brace. It supports.
Yes.
So soft tissue issues are injuries, knees, elbows, backs, shoulders, ankles, whatever it is, hamstrings, calves, whatever you have. One, it supports like a brace. 2, it actually helps heal because as the skin expands and crinkles and spans and crinkles, that sends a message from your brain to send blood to the area. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, you can see on the Facebook Live, I'm yoked. And you guys can just recognize that. I got back in the gym, KT
you
tape.
look like you can still play.
Dude, I did 225 40 times the other day.
If you count on the bench going upstairs, I did that 35
so
times.
But I've gotten back in the gym. It's been just a godsend. So it's really helped. And I'll tell you what, it's an amazing product, and tons of people all over the NFL. You just don't see it because it's underneath the uniforms, but all over the NFL they're using it, all over every sport, every major sport, Tiger Woods, you name it, Tom Brady, everybody. So it's an amazing, amazing tool.
Mark Schlereth joining us here on ESPN San Antonio. Thanks for coming to
My
the
pleasure,
car wash, my friend.
Always
pleasure
you guys.
watching
Take
you
care.
on Sundays now.
Thank you, man. I
so
appreciate
much.
it.
Mark Schlereth right here on ESPN San Antonio.